to the last slot of Eclipse conference. People coming in still. So my name is Sven.
Yeah, my name is Anton. We're working together with Sven.
Yeah, so we work with TypeFox. You might have seen that we are a sponsor of the conference, and we are from Germany, and we are specialized in programming languages and tools, and also cloud tools and so on. And we want to present to you a new project that we've been working on this year. It's a very early thing. It's called Theia, and it is an IDE that targets to be run both on desktop as just a standard desktop application like Eclipse, as well as in browsers like Eclipse J, for instance. And the obvious question whenever you start a new project is, why would I do that? So that will take the first part of this talk, then we will have a demo, then we'll talk a bit about the architecture, and hopefully be able to answer some questions or have some discussions. If you have questions in between, just raise your hand at any time, that's fine. So why Theia? We've been working with Eclipse for, I don't know, actually for when I started working with Java, that is 10, 12 years or so. And we've been working also in a lot of projects that are Eclipse RCP applications or engineering tools, like, you know, these, or IDEs, domain-specific languages. We worked on Xtext for many years, and we've seen all these applications, and we've also seen in the Eclipse community that a lot of our customers and friends have had this question, I think almost for like 6 years or so now, about what comes after Eclipse. Because SWT showed its age already a couple of years ago when there was a lack of maintenance for GTK, for instance, and so on, and there was really like IBM stopped supporting that, and so a lot of people were thinking, okay, what can we do? And there were different approaches, people trying to bring the implementation of SWT to different UI renderers like Qt or OpenGL or something like that, or people made efforts to use E4 with JavaFX. And also, of course, we have Wrap, which you might know for several years, that translates the whole Java application into a browser UI with an Eclipse backend, so to say. And so these are all ways of kind of overcome this problem, and they all seem to have problems here in themselves. So for instance, they all will kind of let you write the UI code still in Java, when a lot of, like, the whole world wants to have the UIs built on web technologies because they are looking also at browser apps. And for IDEs, there's a lot of skeptic about that. At least like a couple of years ago, it's with the idea of containerized development and so on, more people understand that there are a lot of benefits with that. But the thing is, writing all this stuff in Java, and especially this old SWT API, it might allow us to carry on the old code with little effort, but then we still have like the old Eclipse application just with a new renderer front end and so on. And so there are other technologies that came up, like Eclipse J, that is for Docker container development and so on. And so what we wanted to have basically is something that runs both in desktop and browser. So when we talk to people that want to have a product based on Eclipse RCP, then one of the questions is, like, do you think at some point you want to go into the cloud or browser and so on? Then usually they say, well, not now, but maybe in a couple of years. And on the other hand, if you have, for instance, last year we built a data science IDE just for the cloud, and that was what I wanted. But then there are a lot of clients that say, well, I don't want to send all my data into the cloud. I want to work locally. So there is always somehow a case for both. And implementing two IDEs for like the same technology stack, just so you can have one in the browser and one on the desktop, is maybe not a good idea. So we wanted to have something where we can single source the stuff. And you might know Electron. Who does not know Electron? Awesome. Everyone knows that. Is that really true? So next slide is about, no, but yeah, that's basically one technology that allows you to run or to implement a desktop application that integrates with a native operating system in JavaScript technology. So there is a Chromium running and Node APIs and so on, and you can do that. And there are editors that leverage that have shown you can build performant editors. So VS Code for Microsoft is one instance of that. And we thought, okay, when we could do that, then we could also maybe use the same code and run it in a browser, and so that's the architecture of Theia. Before we went there, building it our own, we were just looking at, okay, what we are looking for, and let's see if there is something already that we could reuse. So what we wanted to have is something that runs both in desktop and browser, something with which you can build engineering tools or IDE-like applications. That's the scope. You know, if Eclipse RCP is maybe also has a lot of business apps. We figured out now that there is a good case for Theia to support these business apps also, because we come up with a platform that has stuff like menus and command registry and so on, and it runs both on desktop and browser. But initially we said, oh no, like in the web space, there are a lot of frameworks that do applications like that. So we would really focus on IDEs, IDE-like applications, engineering tools. We wanted to allow fine-grained customization. So really like with Eclipse, where you can tailor the products and build new products based on Eclipse and have a lot of control over everything you put in there. And it should have an extension system that allows clients or users to install extensions, explore an extension registry, and so on. So these are the main topics. So we went off and looked, okay, what does exist? Another requirement for us was we have to use the Java, in the end, to have JavaScript to be executed. And we wanted to have something that allows us to write code that is easier maintainable. So we coming from the Java background, we know how good it is to have static typing, have tools that allow me to find references and so on. So we wanted to have something that supports that. And TypeScript is really an awesome project that does that for the JavaScript world without being too alien for JavaScript. It is very, very close to JavaScript, and they are very careful with adding their additional stuff, and they have a very practical focus in terms of like good tools and so on. So that is, we knew that already because we had experience with that, so we really wanted to do something with TypeScript instead of JavaScript. So we looked at Eclipse J. We had already experience with Eclipse J. We started a project last year. If you look at Eclipse J, it's basically two things. It's a workspace server and an IDE. The workspace server part takes care of, like, you have a user account, and then you have your workspaces. You can start, stop them, and so on. This is out of scope for Theia. Theia needs that, but it's not a part that we want to solve in Theia. We just want to allow Theia to work with Eclipse J Workspace Server. So this Workspace Server is implemented, the backend is Java, there's JavaScript frontend you can use. The IDE of J is fully written in Java, so the front end also is GWT, which is a bit problematic for us because the impedance mismatch between the code you write and what you see in the browser and so on later when you do debugging and so is really too high. There's a lot of complexity being added through this compilation step through GWT, and in the case of Eclipse J, you always have to recompile the whole application, which takes quite some time, like minutes. And that is not, like, we really want to have something with super short turnarounds for the developer, also for the extension developer. It should really be fun to build an extension for the framework. Eclipse J doesn't have a dynamic extension system, which is really sad because it has so much momentum, and if you imagine it had a dynamic extension system where people could just go and build an extension and push it somewhere, there would be already like a huge array of extensions, I'm pretty sure, because there are so many committers and people who really want to do something. But if you go really deep in J and then at some point you understand, there's no extension system, so I really have to copy the whole application in order to build a new application, more or less. And that's a fundamental problem with it, and that needs to be solved in order to make J really successful, I think. And yeah, it also has no desktop support, so there is an Electron thing, but it's just the front end running in Electron with a Docker backend. So no real desktop support. We looked at Orion. Orion had a focus to do web development mostly in the browser, so they didn't do a lot in the backend. Then it is written in JavaScript and not ES6 or so, but in ES5. And for me, it looks a bit like looking at generated code if I read ES5 code, but yeah, so that is one big problem for me. But also the architecture in Orion is, it is made to be a multi-page application, like really embracing the web with links and so on, which doesn't work well if you target desktop applications as well. So then you really need to focus on single page application architecture. And so that's not a good fit. We had discussions with them, and they have a very similar scope now. They propose that we use their Orion editor, which would be possible. Currently, we use one from VS Code, the Monocle Editor. Right, Visual Studio Code and Atom, both not Eclipse projects. They have both in common that they are built on Electron and implemented in JavaScript technology. VS Code written in TypeScript. So it was really like, that was my favorite candidate. If we were able to use VS Code in order to also build something like this data science IDE in the cloud and so on, that would be awesome. But VS Code only runs in Electron, and we looked into the architecture, and it's really not made to be kind of split it in a way that you can have something that runs in the back end and in front end. It would be really hard. And it also has a very limited extensibility. So there's a certain API that we can register languages and so on, but you cannot fully enhance the UI with new stuff you want to. So that's, and they explicitly don't want that. For good reasons, they have their scope. It's just not the same that we have. Atom is written in CoffeeScript, which might have been nice a couple of years ago, but it's also not statically typed. It also doesn't work in browser. It is the main reason why Electron was developed in the first place. It doesn't have language server protocol support. There is a plugin being worked on that. Yeah, but the architecture is also really not a fit to do that, and we had also discussions with them trying to figure it out, but we both parties agreed it doesn't work. So this is for like, why did we start our new stuff, and how is it different with what already exists? And now I hand over to Anton for the demo.
Yeah. So thanks, Len. I would like to show you a couple demos with Theia. So Theia, it's not really a product, it's a framework, and you can build different applications. I have prepared two for you. One is obviously with browser interface. So what we have so far, and you could see it already, is we have file navigator, we support menus. Important things that we want to, for Electron, we actually want to utilize native support. So there we will reuse desktop menus and so on, but for browser we have to rebuild them. So you would be able to contribute different commands and menus, and for different platforms we will render them differently. So in the browser they render like that. For this example, we connected two language servers. One is for Java, another for Python. And here you can see a GDTLS core. It's basically a Java language server project. And we can browse it with Navigator. We have language server running, so we can see references. We can navigate between them. As an editor, we reuse Monocle. It's an editor from VS Code. We had to teach it to LSP, but it was not so difficult because the set of features very close. So it was quite easy. And the second thing, we also teach them to have these editors interconnected, so you can jump between editors and so on. I want to write just a simple hello world application in Python, so you can see how that you even can run some code already in such applications. So let's create some folder. I will code examples. Yeah, it appears in file navigator. I would need a couple of files, one for library. I will code grid.py, where we defined a function which just say, it's def, which say hello, names say hello. It accepts one argument name, and it will print hello with name. As you can see, like you get concatenacies and so on from Python server. Yeah, sorry. Then we will need another file, which I will call main. And it's just another proof that actually a language server running in the background, that we already can import our model grid and call function from there. Another component which we already implemented is a console, so you can create a new terminal. Yeah. Also, we use, like, it was really important for us that we can have this doc layout as an Eclipse. We can lay out all widgets as we want. So I can show you. We will put terminal down as we usually have it. We can put them side by side, our editors. And here we can check the directory where we are. So we need to go on to examples and execute our main py. Okay, sorry, it should be Python 3. Name is missing, maybe Python 2. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hello world, or let's do it. Yeah, so it's say hello world. So it's one example. The second example with Electron and with Sproti. Sproti is a diagramming framework which also built by Typefox. And the important thing about this example is that first, as I said to you, that we will reuse actually menus, native menus. And with Electron version, you maybe can like better integration with your operating system. You can copy code, paste it somewhere, and so on. Another important thing that here we have Xtext language server running in the background. through LSP, and it's not just LSP. We also implemented an extension to LSP protocol to display these diagrams. So if somebody's skeptical that it's really LSP has really limited set of features, it's like not a problem. You always can extend to your use cases. The second point is that you can integrate any widgets which you want, use any technologies. So Sporty uses some technology which for virtual DOM. Somebody wants to use React and so on. It won't be a problem. Yeah. So what we have here, it's a language which describes simulation of debug process for multi-cores. So we define some cores here and then task and how they're related, and you can see it on diagrams. And then when we step through this debugging session, you see which task is executed, where it's allocated, and so on. Yeah. Yeah, I think it was all. Yeah.
You're done?
Yeah.
Are there questions regarding the demo, or I mean, we can go back later. That's not an issue. All right. So the architecture we did here is we have basically a front-end application and a back-end application. They are both written in TypeScript. Actually, it could be many back-end applications. It could be there would be one main back-end application responsible for serving the front end in the browser case, for sure. But then you could say connect to this service or that service. In Che, for instance, they have the idea of agents, so they would start multiple agents in the container, and the front end could connect to them. And the main server could even be not in the container at all, but somewhere else. So the file system would be just one agent and serves the file system from the container. But to simplify that, think of just front end and back end for the moment. So we communicate through JSON RPC mostly. I mean, REST is fine, you can do that, but we really want to have bidirectional communication. So when you saw that Anton creates a folder or creates a file or so, it's really created on the file system, and there is a file system change, and then it comes back, and there's an event, and so any client that is interested in that event will be notified in order to re-render, you know? And so you really need to send events from the backend to the front end. For the browser example, a very typical scenario would be that you run your workspace in a Docker image where there is a file system running, and then you have the Node server that, and the browser would just connect to that and see the UI. For the Electron version, we just start the backend locally, more or less, and have currently also just the standard WebSocket communication between the Chromium front-end window and the Node.js backend there. So it's really the same thing. But what we do here is we again use dependency injection in case you have seen Xtext or have had contact with Xtext. So here we use dependency injection, and that allows you to change the implementation of certain services in one or the other context. So for the front end, there is, for instance, how the menu is rendered is one service, and in Electron it's a different binding than in the browser. So in that case, we use code that really leverages Electron just for this tiny bit. And in the browser case, we render the menu using HTML. So that is how this difference works. But the most of the code is the same. So we try to make that as much as possible, so to say. You can imagine a third example where you have container-based development and you have a local Electron app and connect to that container, of course, that has advantages like native clipboard integration and menu integration and so on. So these are the most, like, the three architectures we envision with Theia. Theia is open source. It's now, you can have a look, it's on GitHub. But it's really, we just made it public. So what we did is we worked a couple of weeks on the first draft, so it's very concrete for everyone who is interested in that, and it would not be just a blueprint or so. So there is something, there is an architecture, and it works, and you can try it, but it's really early, and I think what is the number, version number on NPM? 001. So very like the smallest version number you can have, 00.1.alpha or something like that. But we want to have a beta version in December. And for that, we have a lot of items on the plan, and it's not only TypeFox working on that. There's, I would say, roughly 10 developers working more or less full-time on this. There's people from Eclipse CDT working on Theia, so they implement the debug and launch stuff. We will focus on an extension system. Currently, we have the architecture more or less, but it's really compile time, and you still have to configure what extensions you want to have on the top-level file in code. And later, like in December, the extension system should allow you to install and uninstall extensions at runtime, and also have like predefined list of extensions that you use, and then this extension system will compile an application for the users. I mentioned the run debug support. The Eclipse CDT, a couple of Eclipse CDT developers from Ericsson will take care of that. The language server protocol is mostly finished. That was one of the first things we wanted to do. The preferences service, something we want to have there, because it will be very useful for extensions to be able to have preferences and store them and so on. We are thinking about having a marker service very similar to what Eclipse has, so something that allows you to add metadata to resources and attach them to their life cycle, more or less. And then based on that, we want to have views and so on to show certain types of markers. A command palette, if you have had a look at VS Code or Atom, you have a shortcut that opens a text field where you can type in something like a command or open file or something like that. It's very handy. And we want to do that as well. So it's basically this widget, and then we will hook it up with a command registry, but also open file, open symbol stuff, and like that. And then there are many others. On the GitHub page, there is a milestone for that and a list of items we committed to work on. But there are other things that are not on the list, so if you are interested in trying out something or so, or taking over something, you would be very welcome. All right, I think we have, that's the last slide. So we really want to make this as open as possible. It's not, for instance, not like somehow at under a TypeFox organization, but it's really Theia, and it's a thing that should work for many different companies. And we've talked a lot to a lot of companies, and they all seem to have like the scope and think this is really what is useful. So we hope we will find a lot of contributors and can grow a community there. I haven't put the GitHub link here. I think that's the main mistake. But Google is there for you to help. It's Theia on GitHub. You will find it. And with that, we have some time left for questions. Yes?
What is the license?
It is Apache 2. The license is Apache 2. Yeah? It is not an Eclipse, not yet, no. Yeah? Yes, there are discussions, yeah. I mean, there are, like, what I said is, it should be open. So at some point, it should go into some foundation, and Eclipse Foundation for me would work well. So I mean, I know this community and so on. So, but it's really also important for, like, we really want to gather feedback and have bigger companies involved, and so for them, these decisions are much more important than for me within Typefox. I could live with all kinds of foundations as long as it's open, you know. But yeah, Eclipse Foundation is definitely, I think, my favorite. Yeah. Yep.
There are many Java developers, and I think one of the fears could be that they cannot write plugins that they can run here. Is there any form of integration of the code written in Java that can run somehow in Theia, even JavaScript?
So the question is, can I use Java? And for the backend, you can for sure. I said you can have multiple backends, and if you have some service that is written in Java and that speaks the JSON RPC protocol that the client expects, you can just do it like that. And in fact, you saw this Sprotty application. It connects to a language server that is written in Java because it uses Xtext. And it also uses Eclipse layout kernel, which is also written in Java. And so, yeah, this is the way how we can use a lot of our technology in this context. The Java language server, that was Eclipse running in the background, really. I mean, that is what the Java language server does. But for UI, it will be hard. You could use GWT, but yes? Eclipse is a copyleft license. Apache is not so much. It works better with GPL. I think that's the main reasons. But it can change also, and we can also have multi-licenses, and I know a BSD would also be fine, so we can have that at Eclipse. Yeah?
For the developer, do you plan to use the internal protocol of the code they have, or some similar layers, or do you choose to go in your own direction? Have you already investigated that so far?
What protocol are you referring to?
Inside the code, it's not that well. I mean, as the language of protocol, but internally they use the JSON RPC protocol for several languages. It's a bit similar to the language server one.
We use the language server protocol as it is defined and on the GitHub repository you referred to also yesterday. I mean, how they develop it is they first do it in VS Code and then they move it up to the language server protocol. If there is more, when there will be more client for language server protocol, I think they should be more open to finding a common way or so to improve, enhance it. But yeah, we are not using the internal one. We use the language server protocol. Yeah. Yes.
Why is the name
I don't know. I mean, I can tell a story. But it is a code name, actually. It was just like we were talking about the thing, and we called it this JavaScript IDE, and it was not even JavaScript because TypeScript, and we wanted to have a name for sure. And Akash had this proposal for Theia, and I mean, Theia is this. I'm not sure it's the planet, but that hit the Gaia, the old world, and pushed out the moon from it. So there is the Earth and the moon now. Make with that whatever you want, I don't know. But there is some connection to Eclipse somehow. Yes?
Many of my clients make heavy use of EMF and generated code. Are you aware of an EMF or Monocle Editor available in IDE? Had issues moving to something like K because I can't do certain things, like equal diagrams, or you know, it's a little difficult to do in a model set. Is there any way to do that?
The Sprotty demo was representing EMF state. So there on the back end there is EMF, there are EMF models and so on, and we use that information and send what is necessary to do the visualization of that to the client. But you could, of course, try to push the whole EMF model somehow to the client and re-implement it there or whatever. I do not have plans for that. I don't think that it's a good idea, but maybe there would be a use case for which it's necessary, but I don't know one now. Okay, thank you very much, and have a nice travel home.